What's up, guys? CuzBadGuys here, back with another video. This video is going to be a tournament report that I am doing with the Empire of Man. Remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out. So the tournament that we're doing is going to be an RTT style tournament, and that's going to be 3 games that are each 3 hours apiece. Getting right into it, this is going to be the Empire army that I am taking. Starting off with characters, we've got a General of the Empire. He has a hand weapon, full plate armor, shield, demigryph, and the Ruin Fang. So the Ruin Fang on a General of the Empire, the General of the Empire only has 3 attacks instead of 4, which you can take a Grandmaster to get 4 attacks. But I couldn't justify the 50 extra points that the Grandmaster costs in this army because I needed to be as efficient as possible because I'm trying to be competitive in being able to actually win. So I needed to cut some corners and save some points. So took a General of the Empire. The reason why this guy has a Ruin Fang instead of just giving him a lance or something is because if something was able to break through my lines and survived getting hit by the cannons and the artillery and stuff, something like a giant or a dragon or something like that, I wanted to be able to roll 2s to wound it instead of rolling 4s to wound it. So that's the reason why I spent 100 points on a magic item, is because this guy is really just to take off the last couple wounds for something that I wasn't able to truly take down. Him being the general, he's the general because he is leadership 9 and is the highest leadership in the characters. Next, let's talk both of the wizard lords. So I've got 2 wizard lords. Both have been upgraded to be level 4 wizards, and both are on Empire war horses. One is upgraded to have the Ruby Ring of Ruin and Lure Familiar and is taking dark magic. The second has the Wizard's Familiar and is taking battle magic. These 2 wizards fulfill 2 very different roles. The dark magic wizard has Lure Familiar, so is going to be taking Doombolt, Word of Pain, Stream of Corruption, and Battle Lust. Doombolt is to match up with Ruby Ring of Ruin, so both of his magic missiles have a 24-inch range. With that 24-inch range, I'm planning on having him skirt just outside of Dispel range and shooting both of those magic missiles without having counter magic. The Lure Familiar is to make it so he can always choose those 4 spells. Word of Pain is exactly what it is. It's a debuff to debuff a unit that I'm either planning on targeting with a charge or targeting with shooting. -1 strength, -1 toughness is incredibly powerful. Stream of Corruption is the one that I chose as an oh crap spell. So if things go south and I need to charge my wizard lord into combat, it's to make it so he can get as many hits on something that he also Words of Pain. I'm hoping to never have to use this spell, but it's a spell just in my back pocket to make sure that things go okay. And then Battle Lust. Battle Lust is one of the stars of the show, which I will throw Battle Lust onto one of my combat units to just make them hit really, really hard. The Battle Magic Wizard is there with the Wizard's Familiar, which is +1 to Dispel. So inside of his 24-inch Dispel range, he is +5 to Dispel. He is there to go to the middle of the table and really just shut down my opponent's magic. And then Battle Magic is just really offensive, and I'm hoping to get Fireball, Pillar of Fire, and drop for Hammerhand, and this guy is there really to just dispel and shoot out magic missiles to do damage to the opponent. Moving on to my last 2 characters. These are going to be 2 Empire Engineers that have both been upgraded to be Hochland Long Rifles. So these guys are really there just for their Master of Ballistics reroll for artillery dice, as I've taken quite a few war machines. The Hochland long rifles, I'm not really depending on the Hochland long rifles to really do a lot. Like, I'm not planning on trying to kill characters with them. They are psychological warfare. So I am paying the 20 points for these two Hochland long rifles to mess with my opponent, to have them move their characters to be in places of what they think is safety, and to really misplace their characters to not be in key positions to buff their army. So this is really just psychological warfare with points. Moving to core, we have two identical units of Empire Knights. They have a quantity of 7, and both are upgraded to have full command. So they have the unit champion, standard bearer, and musician. Core, you have to take the 500 points of core for the tax for your army. The Empire Knights, these guys are here to be combat units. They are here to really punish my opponent, because they have to, my opponent, the way my army is built, is my opponent has to approach me because I've brought so much firepower. As they approach me, they will get into within charge range of my knights, and then my knights will get buffed with something like Battle Lust, charge in, and try to do as much damage as quickly as possible. In core, I also have a unit of 21 missile troops. These are going to be crossbowmen. They have an upgraded sergeant, also with a Hochland long rifle. So just like the Hochland long rifles with the engineers, this Hochland long rifle is also just a psychological tool. I'm not planning on him actually killing stuff. It is just for the threat of being able to target out unit champions and characters and getting my opponents to misplace their characters so their armies aren't buffed as well as they could be. Taking the 21 state missile troops with crossbows instead of handguns. Crossbows have the 30-inch range, so I'm able to shoot into my opponent's deployment zone right at turn 1. And that extra range is needed for the damage that I caused turn 1. These guys are also to be a unit bunker for my engineers if a defensive place is needed for the engineers to be, because I don't want the engineers to be targeted by a magic missile or something like that. So that unit is on foot and here to be able to be placed in between war machines and stuff for my engineers to be safe. Next, let's move to special. Starting off specials, we've got the Demigryph Knights. This is a unit of 3. They have lances, have been upgraded to have full plate armor, and have a unit champion and a standard. Creating this unit, I wanted the lances because I want strength 6, AP 2 when I first charge. I'd rather have that than the halberds. I also want that instead of the halberds because I want the 2+ save in close combat. That's why they've got the full plate armor. I am missing the musician because I needed to be able to cut points for the magic items that my characters have, and I just couldn't fit the musician into the list. And I figured the musician wouldn't be needed, as a musician are in both of my knight units. So in combat, if I tie, the demigryphs and a unit of knights should be in combat with whatever I'm going after to be able to break ties. Next, in special, we've got 3 great cannons. Yep, that's right. I took 3 great cannons. So these are going to be Strength 10, AP 3, Armor Bane 2. So on 6s, they're AP 5. They're D3 wounds +1. Really, really good at taking out single entities. So things like other war machines and monsters, as well as character-ridden monsters. So dragons, griffins, that kind of stuff. And other war machines really need to look out for these things because they're pretty good at anti-battery fire because of the D3 +1 damage. Lastly, rare choices, and I brought a Hellblaster Volley Gun. So Hellblaster Volley Gun does Hellblaster Volley Gun things. It shoots 3 artillery dice worth of shots, which means you've got 3 chances to misfire. That's why I brought 2 engineers to be able to get reroll on a misfire dice. This is really there just to blast at enemies that start marching towards my army. So what is my battle plan? So this is what a generic lineup for my army is going to look like. I would put each of the knight units on each flank, so right and left flank. I would then centralize the crossbow unit and put the engineers in that unit to make it so they have a command range for the war machines, which will be the cannons and the Hellblaster, to centralize my firepower and have as much fire lanes as I possibly can to target the opponent. I would then also centralize my demigryphs with the General of the Empire to make sure that he can get to the point of the battlefield that I need him the most. And then the Battle Wizard and the Dark Wizard, respectively, would go to whichever side needed the most magic support or firepower as well. It all depends on how my opponent deploys, and it all depends on the battle map. Obviously, this is a generic battle plan, and not all plans go according to plan. Not all plans survive contact with the enemy. That being said, let's start off with round 1. It was meeting engagement versus Orcs and Goblins. We were playing 6 turns with battle points and no reserve rules. Let's talk my opponent's army. So he's got 3 big blocks of Black Orcs, meaning he's got 3 Black Orc characters. So he's got a Black Orc War Boss and 2 Black Orc Big Bosses, one of which is a Battle Standard Bearer. He then has 2 Boar Chariots, 2 units of Orc Boys that are archers, a Giant, and lastly a level 4 Wizard of Elementalism. He ended up deploying in this corner with a tower on his left flank, which had a unit of Orc archers in it. The Wizard was also with that unit, and he had his Giant and one of his chariots behind that tower so they couldn't be shot by the cannons. My deployment, I was able to get the side that had the hill on it, so I put my unit of archers on there, with the being flanked by the war machines. So I've got 2 cannons on the left side and a cannon and the Hellblaster on the right side, as the right side is going to be more centered to the board as we're deployed in corners. So the Hellblaster would have better shots on that side. Next to them is going to be the demigryphs. And then on each flank, just as planned, is the units of knights. And along with each of the units of knights, I've got the Dark Wizard and the Battle Wizard. Turn 1, I was able to bounce a cannonball into one of his chariots and destroy it. The other 2 cannonballs I just shot into Black Orcs and just killed some Black Orcs because I didn't have line of sight to his Giant or his other chariot because he had put them behind the tower. And then I just moved up my knights and moved my demigryphs to support the other flank, and just really waited for him to come towards me, as I was able to shoot out and do damage to him, and he had to be able to respond by doing damage to me. He moved his archers forward into the trees and took pot shots into my knights, and the archers in the tower shot at the other knights. Doing pot shots really didn't do any damage. And then we moved on to turn 2. Turn 2, I just rinse and repeat, did the same thing again. Shot 3 cannonballs this time through Black Orcs. It wasn't going to be very effective against them because you only kill equal to the ranks that you shoot through. Like you can only do hits against what you shoot through. It's not what the line actually crosses. So I was only killing 3 black orcs each shot, which I needed to do as much damage to them as possible because black orcs are super, super tough. We ended up going back and moving back and forth, posturing, and my opponent was actually really, really smart because I was able to kill his archers and the 1 chariot, which added up to 200 victory points. He realized that if he was able to bait out one of my knight units and kill it in close combat, the knight units was worth 172, and then with the banner it would be worth 222, which would be more points than the 200 points which I had killed. He never ended up bringing his other chariot or giant out from behind the blocking pieces of terrain, so I was never able to shoot at them. But I wasn't able to do enough damage to the black orcs to actually make them run or get them down to 25%. And I never charged because I was never in a position to where I could actually win a combat against the black orcs. And he never overextended himself to make it so I could get into that position. So we ended up going to turn 6, doing almost no damage to each other. Like I killed quite a few black orcs, but I never got any of his units down to 25% or less. So we ended with me getting 200 victory points from the 2 units of archers and the chariot, and he got 0 victory points because he was really trying to bait me out to throw away one of my knight units. Super cool opponent, really interesting tactics. I had never really thought of it that way, in like straight point denial and knowing that cannons would just not do enough to infantry, to be able to just sit back and really just wait for your opponent to come after you. And I realized that about turn 3, and then just didn't give in, just didn't get frustrated with not getting more points and out positioning myself and like really giving up points to my opponent. Moving on from that victory, we go to round 2, which is going to be Mountain Pass versus Skaven. We've got 6 turns and it's just standard victory points. You also can't interact with the long table edges, so you can't flee off of it or ambush off of it. Starting off with my opponent's army and deployment, we will go on the left. So in front, he has a unit of plague sensors screening a unit of the plague rats. They have additional hand weapons. Next to them is a hell pit abomination. And behind that is a plague furnace. Moving to the right on the hill, he has a catapult. And in front of that is a unit of night runners. Next to that is another unit of night runners that is screening a unit of Skaven slaves that has full command, and then he has a battle standard bearer in that unit. With that unit is also a rattling gun that is off to the right of the unit. And then behind the pillar is another unit of Skaven slaves with full command and spears. And in front of that is a unit of rat ogres. My deployment, I followed my battle plan of knights go on right and left flank. Firepower goes in the center. Because this is short deployment, I had to sacrifice my crossbows and I just deployed them 5 wide. Also, due to the short deployment frontage, I had to put my demigriffs behind my knights on my left flank because short deployments like this, you just don't have that frontage. So I had to make sacrifices where I had to. The reason why I put the crossbows on that side is because that's where large targets were. So all of my crossbows would be able to shoot at the furnace and the Hell Pit Abomination because of large target. And I would just have to swallow that pill for this game. The Battle Wizard is on that left flank because that's where both of his wizards are at, so I'm there to be able to dispel. My Dark Wizard is on the other flank to be able to support against the Rat Ogres. Going over turn 1 and turn 2, my Knights move forward on both flanks to push up just to get charges off and ready. My Demigryphs move forward as well to push to the center. The cannons, after 2 rounds of firing at the Hell Pit Abomination, it has a 5+ regen, so is really good at regenning wounds for getting saves off. And my opponent was actually rolling really well. So end of my turn 2, my cannons had shot 6 cannonballs at the Hell Pit Abomination, and the last shot finally downed it, only for the Hell Pit Abomination to come back to life with its special rule. He rolled a 6 and it came back to life with 2 wounds. And I still had Fireball left from my Battle Wizard, and I had to use Fireball to bring it down because I couldn't have it charging the Demigryphs. I thought it was going to go down and then didn't know that it had that special rule to be able to come back. It was really cool seeing that rule come into play, and my opponent was actually really excited that he rolled the 6. Super fun and thematic to see something like that happen on the table. That being said, on the right flank with the Rat Ogres, turn 2, I did Battle Lust on my Knights and Word of Pain on the Rat Ogres, and the Knights charged in. And when you put Word of Pain on something and Battle Lust on its opponent, you really destroy things. So I charged in and I actually killed all 3 of the Rat Ogres in my opening swings with the Knights. After the Knights destroyed the Rat Ogres, I overran, as Frenzy units have to overrun. They don't get a choice. And I ended up being 1 inch short of being able to hit that slave unit there in the back. So they were able to charge my Knights on their turn. The Dark Wizard is in the corner over here on the right. He is in range to shoot the screening unit of Night Runners, and he removes them, and when I move him, I make sure that he is out of Gatling gun range of that Skaven Rattling gun. In the center, the unit of slaves with the Battle Standard Bearer move forward, prepping for a charge. The next turn, I absolutely nuke them with my whole gun line. After the dust settles, there are only 4 slaves, rank and file slaves, left alive, and my Hochland long rifles target that unit and target the Battle Standard Bearer, and they kill the Battle Standard Bearer. It was the highlight of the tournament for the Hochland long rifles in that moment, and downing that character. I was surprised. Moving over further to the left flank, the Demigryphs charge those Night Runners and hit them in combat and kill them. They then turn to face the catapult. Meanwhile, the Knights on the left flank charge the Plague Rats, and they end up punching each other back and forth for 2 rounds of combat, and the Knights finally win a round of combat and are able to break through, and they overrun into the furnace. The furnace then takes absolutely no damage. I super whiff on my attacks against the furnace, and then the reprisal attacks from the furnace destroy that unit of Knights. The back in the center, the 4 slaves that were there, they roll snake eyes for their leadership, like the panic, and then they roll a 6 for the charge in being able to charge the cannons. In the ensuing round of combat, the rats are able to kill a crewman each on each of the cannons, and I pass both of my break checks. In the next round of combat, he kills both crewmen in both of the cannons, and then is able to turn to face my Hellblaster and charge the Hellblaster in his turn, so I'm never able to target. The cannon tries to shoot the catapult, misfires, and then my reroll goes into a misfire, and then my cannon explodes. So it's the one time where I get a misfire through my rerolls and blow up one of my war machines. On my right flank, the knights and the slaves ended up just slapping each other back and forth, and we would kill a couple each time, each round of combat, but essentially I kept losing and would back up 2 inches because I would always only ever give ground because I kept passing my break checks. And then the Dark Wizard was able to move forward, put Word of Pain on them. They lost combat because they weren't able to do any damage, and then I was able to run them down. On the left flank, after the Furnace was able to destroy my unit of knights with all of its attacks, it only had 1 wound left after my charge with the knights and with the multiple bouncing cannonballs through the Abomination. The Battle Wizard over there was able to do a Pillar of Fire and bounce it through, and then also a Fireball, and brought the Furnace down. And with that, the game came to an end. It ended with Empire of Man getting the victory with 1861 victory points, and the Skaven had a loss with 465 victory points. I have to give it to my opponent. We had a blast playing this game. The Hell Pit Abomination coming back to life was amazing, and the Skaven slaves passing their panic check in the middle and charging my cannon line and just slapping the cannon crew to death was absolutely hilarious and was a ton of fun to play. Props to my opponent for the shenanigans that is the Skaven. So let's go ahead and move on to round 3. This was King of the Hill versus Tomb Kings. It was going to be 6 turns. Victory points are the battle condition, and the hill is worth 100 victory points. This was a sweet scenario that the TO came up with for the last battle round. This ended up being our deployment, so let's go over it. Starting off with my opponent's army, there on the right is going to be his Tomb King on Bone Dragon. Right next to that is a unit of Sepulchre Stalkers, the Snaky Surf Boys. Next to that in the trees is a unit of 10 Skirmishing Archers. In the middle is going to be 2 units of 32 Skeleton Spearmen. So huge blocks of infantry. The one on the right has a prince in the front with a monster slaying sword, and then the one on the left has a level 2 sorcerer guy in it that was illusion, and then behind both of those is his level 4 that had necromancy. Next to those 2 big blocks is a unit of 3 chariots. Either side of the chariots was 10 units of skirmishing archers, so that's 30 skirmishing archers total. And then behind the tower on the left were 2 units of the skirmishing horse archers. So there's 16 horse archers behind that building. Going over my deployment, this is the one time where I deviated from my standard deployment because I had to battle over the center of the board for that 100 points. And I knew that if my opponent was able to get a foothold on that hill, there's no way I was going to be able to take him off. So I had to be aggressive really, really fast from the very beginning. So I put a unit of knights and my demigryphs there in the center. They were supported by the battle wizard. And then in my demigryphs is my general of the empire. Moving to the right is the unit of crossbows. I deployed them only 5 wide because I was planning on shooting just the dragon. So all of my archers would be able to fire on him as he's a large target. On my right flank, on top of the hill that is in my deployment zone, I put 2 cannons along with one of my engineers. I wanted to split my war machines up because that hill in the middle was a huge void of not being able to see, and I didn't want the dragon to be posted up on the side that I couldn't see, so I couldn't shoot him. So I split my war machines, 2 cannons on the right, and then a cannon and the Hellblaster on the left. Not too far on the left to really be blocked by that building, just so I could see all of the board. With the cannon and the Hellblaster is the second engineer over there, and he's in between the 2. And then on the left flank is my other unit of knights. I was pretty sure that my opponent was going to put his horse archers, they have scout, behind that building. I was really sure that he would do that. So I put my knights over there just to be a deterrent. And then the Dark Wizard is on that side to help out with his magic. Let's go ahead and get into gameplay. So this picture is midway through my turn 2. So let's start on my right flank. So my cannons, I just kept shooting those cannons into the dragon. The dragon, he took a special sword, which did the slash that gave D6 auto hits. I was really surprised that he didn't go for a really tough build with the dragon. I was just glad that that dragon did not have a ward save. That being said, even though it didn't have a ward save, he made quite a few regen saves, and after having caught 5 cannonballs, he still had 1 wound left. I wasn't able to target the Sepulchre Stalkers at all because that dragon was such a big threat. The Battle Wizard shot a fireball at the skirmishing archers and a pillar of fire at them and killed 5 of them. He then also moved back to help with the left flank because I was in an oh crap moment of all those horse archers that were turning around that building and shooting into my war machine. On my left flank, after turn 2, the 2 units of 8 horse archers, after the dust settled of getting hit with a doom bolt, 2 fireballs, and the Hellblaster volley gun getting shot at them, there were only 4 horse archers left from 1 unit. That 1 horse archer unit then charged the cannon that's on my left flank, and over the next round of combat killed the unit, so that cannon ended up dying. And this is where my Stream of Corruption came in handy because my Dark Wizard turned around and charged those horse archers and then had Word of Pain on them, and between his attacks and the Stream of Corruption killed the horse archers. So the horse archers, I was able to mitigate the damage, but I still lost a cannon over there. Moving to the right, the unit of knights on my farthest left scooted forward turn 1, and then on turn 2 charged the unit of 10 archers on foot. They stood and shot, killing 1 knight on the charge in. The ensuing combat, I killed 7 or 8 of them, and then the last ones popped from combat resolution, and then I overran into the chariots that were behind them. Moving on to the next unit of knights, there was one archer that was left alive after getting shot by a fireball and the Hellblaster volley gun, and the knights ended up charging the one guy. They killed him and then overran into the unit of 32 spearmen in the back. I did a really hard send in the middle because I knew that if my opponent was able to get anything on the hill, that I would be hard pressed to get him to be removed. So I went real hard in the middle going after his infantry. So let's move on to the demigryphs. So turn 1, the demigryphs with the general of the empire jumped on top of the hill, so they were able to see the units of spearmen on the other side of it. Then turn 2, my dark wizard moved up and I was able to get Word of Pain off on their target, and I was able to get Battle Lust off on the demigryphs. The demigryphs then charged my turn 2, which is what you can see right here. My opponent ended up doing declaring a challenge, and my unit champion of the demigryphs stepped up. He ended up not killing the lone skeleton. Like, I whiffed all of my attacks, and then he passed regens to be able to not die. The regen still fell into combat resolution, but I didn't kill that skeleton because of regens. Then my general of the empire and the 2 demigryphs left with frenzy and hatred swung into the skeletons. I killed something like 14 skeletons. He didn't pass a single regen in this combat, which was nuts. And it was almost like the dice abandoned him in his turn 2, because his level 4 failed the leadership to raise guys back, and his level 2 failed leadership to raise guys back, and his prince failed leadership to give a bonus to stats for My Will Be Done or whatever it's called. But essentially there in the middle, he just failed like his dice abandoned him that turn. And in the following turn, the demigryphs finished off the unit, and the prince overran into his level 4. His level 4 tried to do a step aside, which is you have to pass an initiative test. If you're a lone character and you get overran into by an enemy unit, you can try to do what's called a step aside move, which you have to pass an initiative test. He failed it, and my demigryphs ran into his level 4. In that round of combat, I just declared a challenge with my general, and the general of the empire just cut down his level 4 with the Ruin Fang. After that, his level 4 was dead, which means his whole army loses the regen save, and every single unit has to test for crumble. At this point, his army really started struggling and just couldn't stay on the battlefield. On my right flank, his Tomb King charged a cannon, killed it, and then ran off the board, and then came back the next turn, and my battle wizard moved over and shot a fireball at him, so was able to kill the Tomb King with a fireball. And the Sepulchre Stalkers charged and killed the other cannon and the engineer. And then at that point, the game was nearly over. We only got to turn 5, and turn 5, because it was bottom of turn 5, he had a mortuary priest over on the left flank that was following his Tomb King around on dragon, and he had the a piece of equipment that let him fly. I don't remember if it was the carpet or if it was a cloak from the Tomb King's gear, but it let him fly. And in his turn 5, I didn't have anybody on the hill, so he flew that mortuary priest onto the hill and got the 100-point victory points at the end of the game. After pointing everything up, after that last turn, it turned out to be an Empire of Man win with 1880 victory points and a Tomb King's loss with 530 victory points. I have to give a shout out to my opponent. He was great. The dragon not having a ward save and still surviving as long as it did was pretty nuts. The dice just abandoning him that turn 2, not passing a single regen save, not passing the initiative sidestep dice roll, and just all around quite a bit bad luck, and still being a good sport about it. I really appreciate when people play games like this and are awesome. I ended the tournament with a record of 3-0, a total of 3,941 victory points, and ended in first place. Because of the first match, I actually didn't have the highest victory points total. Second place had like 4,500 points, but he had a record of 2-1, so had a loss. So even though I lost victory points total, I was able to get first place because I didn't have a loss. I have to thank the tournament organizers and the game store for letting us play here. It was awesome. The terrain was great. The opponents were great. I really love that Old World is out and people are enjoying it, and the tactics to it is fun. The just rank and flank is a blast. How each army has a different play style and a different way to interact with your opponents. Tons of fun. I can't say enough about the game. I can't say enough about the community. Absolute blast. With that, what are your guys' thoughts? What are your guys' thoughts of the army? What are your guys' thoughts of the tactics behind it? What are your thoughts of my opponent's armies and their tactics? What are your experiences with playing with Empire, and what are you finding success with? Is it cavalry? Is it war machines? Is it infantry? Moving on, there is another tournament in my area this coming weekend. I don't want to play the same kind of stuff that I've already played, so I'm asking the question again. What army do you think I should take to the next one? Should I do demons or should I do orcs and goblins? Those are the two armies that I really have left to be able to take to a tournament that I haven't played in a tournament yet. I have success on the battlefield with both of those armies, and I've been able to get games with those under my belt and understand how those armies work. So both are choices. Let me know what you guys think. Remember to like and subscribe. I've really enjoyed the comments. I've really liked the warm welcome that I feel like I've had from the community, and getting subscribers and people liking the content. That being said, remember to like and subscribe, and remember, 'cause bad guys.